on the 7th of November in 2025, the United States President declared Anti-Communism Week. I mean, the 7th of November, that's the anniversary of the October Revolution in Russia, which then forms the Soviet Union. It's incredible. In Germany, it is illegal to show the hammer and sickle. It's insane. I mean, when did that happen? These are societies that are supposed to be quote-unquote free societies, but you're just not permitted to talk about certain things. It's absolutely forbidden. And what certain things? Not certain things that are random, very particular certain things. Mostly it's a history and contribution of communism in the world today. That history, that contribution is completely being invalidated. And what is that contribution in the specific instance of the 80th anniversary of the victory over fascism? It's in the defeat of fascism. 100 million people roughly killed in Asia, in Africa, in the Soviet Union, 100 million people. United States lost 500,000. 500,000 is a lot of people, but it's not 100 million. That contribution to the defeat of fascism has to be erased because the Western liberal political agenda is to basically tie communism to fascism and make them two species of authoritarianism, not see their own kinship to fascism, particularly as it rises in different forms in Europe and in the Americas. Well, it is absolutely clear that trade relations between global South countries has increased over the last 3 years. But let's not stay with that. There is plenty of evidence of a new political mood. Many global South countries have been furious that the Western states continue to be complicit in the genocide against the Palestinians, or that they're raising their military budgets in NATO countries and so on. Global South countries have been explicit. Gustavo Petro goes to the UN General Assembly, gives a fiery speech, and Trump's reaction is no visa to you to come to the US. And in fact, that's interesting. Trump's tariff war is in many ways an attempt to put the new mood in the global South behind. When he comes to Malaysia, when he comes to South Korea, he's trying to punish these countries for basically participating in a new mood. In Malaysia, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has been explicit in saying Malaysia wants to do this, wants to do that, and then Trump says no and smashes a hammer on him. In South Korea, the people rose up, said we don't want martial law. They brought in a new president. Okay, he's a centrist president, but he promised to take care of people's needs. Trump shows up, Trump smashes him on the head, punishes him. It's very clear from the behavior of the United States, they're afraid of this new mood. If there was no new mood, why would they behave like that?
真相必须得到还原。
It's actually not the case that there is a long uninterrupted history of the global South trying to assert itself, because this happens in periods. And then there are long periods, like when the third world debt crisis hit in the 1980s, there are long periods where the mood collapses and the institutional project collapses, and intellectuals and thinkers and so on turn to the West for sustenance, and they start to say things like, what are we getting from the Western countries, and let's basically absorb neoliberal thinking, etc. That was the period just behind us. Now there's a revitalization of thinking about the South and ideas and trying to figure out what are people saying in China. China is an important place to have this conversation because, in a sense, well, it's a liberated zone. You can actually talk about these things. You come from places where you feel like you're a minority in saying certain things. You can get confidence talking about them here, meeting other people, building networks, joining, maybe some platforms and so on, going back home, finding other people. This is about network building. We are revitalizing confidence in the global South's ideas about itself. And that's really, really, really significant.